灵爪。
Good evening, everyone. Hello, it's Sid from Cool Moviegram, and today is a movie review time for a movie called The Magic Crystal, which is a Hong Kong sci-fi fantasy with action and martial arts mixed, and also somewhat of a comedy, which is supposed to be. It was directed by Wong Jing. Came out in 1986. The film stars Andy Lau, Cynthia Rothrock, Wong Jing himself, and also Richard Norton, and amongst others. Now, the film is about a man called Andy Lau, played by Andy Lau, who's a mercenary called Eagle Hunter, who is usually employed by the police. And him and his nephew, played by Seal Ban Ban, a child actor back then, who's named Ban Ban in the movie, and as well as Snooker, who's played by Wong Jing, which is Andy Lau's bumbling sidekick, his assistant. They decide to go on a holiday to Greece, which is on the behest of a man called Shum Quan, played by the late Philip Ko, who's an archaeologist who has found something. And this something turns out to be a piece of jade, which apparently has supernatural powers and is like an extraterrestrial being. And somehow Shum Quan gets kidnapped by Karov, who's a Russian gangster or KGB type of character, who's really good at martial arts. But then also Interpol agents played by Max Mock and Cynthia Rothrock, who plays Cindy Morgan in this movie, decide to also after the same crystal. So this is what happens in the movie, and then literally the kid, which is Andy Lau's nephew Ban Ban, finds this rock and starts talking to him. They become friends, they become attached, and the bad guys are trying to literally apprehend them because they think it's worth a lot of money somehow. And literally just a whole lot of fighting ensues. Now, overall, the plot of the film is very, very thin. There isn't really much to go by in terms of like plot points or character development or anything like that. The pluses of the film, I would say, is, of course, the lead stars. I mean, the fight sequences in this film, being that the talents that's involved in making this film in terms of the stars, they just look really good when they fight, especially Cynthia Rothrock, Richard Norton. They light up the screen whichever film they're in. I mean, whenever they're in a Hong Kong film, their martial arts abilities are always made to put to good use. And the downside of it is, Andy Lau was actually pretty good in this movie in terms of like his martial arts abilities. Although in some of the shots in the film, you could clearly see like some of the flips and the acrobats that were involved, like the more elaborate martial arts sequences. You could tell some of the shots he was doubled, but they're not so obvious. So, but overall, he seems to perform pretty well. Yeah, I mean, it's just like such an 80s film. I mean, the plot itself, pretty much, you could tell. I mean, Wong Jing himself is known for making films that are usually ripping off a lot of Hong Kong or Hollywood movies. This one, clearly, considering it was only 4 years after E.T. was released, so you could tell he was kind of going for that whole Mac and me and E.T. kind of like relationship of Ban Ban and the Jade Crystal. Yeah, I mean, which is kind of annoying. And the humor in this movie, I mean, you had that Natalis Chan, who sometimes is unbearable in films, and sometimes he's quite humorous. I mean, perfect example in being in movies like The Crazy Companies. I thought he was actually pretty funny in that movie. But in here, I mean, the humor is it's just, I don't know, just it's unfunny at most times. The funniest person in this movie probably was the Shek Keen, who plays Sergeant Shek. Of course, most people know him for playing the bad guy in Enter the Dragon, Mr. Han. And here you see a more comical side to him, which I always thought that whenever he's actually cast in a very comical type of role, in whenever he has in the 80s especially, he's always done pretty well. I mean, I was always impressed by his comic timing. And yeah, I mean, most of the cast, I mean, they seem to do their job pretty well. I forgot the actress's name. It's going to kill me. The one that played Andy Lau's sister. Really good martial artist. She has a really good fight scene. Yeah, I mean, the humor, I mean, sometimes it kind of varies. You're thinking that, okay, they're trying to aim for like a kid's movie, but at the same time, they've got this kind of like really brutal fight scenes, and then also Wang Jing's kind of like toilet humor added in, and his lechy type of humor as well. I mean, you see an early role from Charlotte Chung, aka Chung Man, as the character Winnie Shum, who plays Philip Cole's sister in this movie. And yeah, this is one of her earlier appearances. I don't know if it was her first role or not, but she looked absolutely stunning in this film. She was like, I mean, I could see why. This is why she went on to become a very popular leading lady in a lot of Hong Kong movies during the 90s, especially because she could act. And over here, all she was just usually the damsel in distress and who looked really hot. I mean, that's the one thing. Wang Jing, I mean, whether his films are good or bad, he always has a lot of hot women in his movies. They always, and I mean, it's unfunny. It's kind of like they got part of a crappy film. They don't know if they were trying to go for a kids movie, but then sometimes the action scenes they seemed a bit brutal and kind of like, you know, there are some instances of like some bloody action and such as well. And I'm like, I don't know. It was kind of tonally, it was kind of a mismatch, but overall, the fight sequences are the best thing in this movie. I mean, you got people like Andy Lau, you got Max Mock as Cynthia Rothrock's Interpol agent partner, and Richard Norton, of course. I mean, they all perform well in their fight sequences, and you know, it has quite a few familiar faces popping up here and there. But other than that, there isn't really much to go by this movie. I mean, I know some people hail this as a classic. It's just for those fights. Even by Wang Jing standards, which ain't usually a lot higher. I mean, he either makes great movies or downright really bad. This one's just a bit like, yeah. I would probably rate this maybe about 3 stars out of 5. If it weren't for the action, this probably would have been even low. It's mediocre at best. I mean, there were other movies being made at the time which featured people like Richard Norton, Cynthia Rothrock did quite a few in Hong Kong at the time. I mean, and yeah, they were a lot better. You know, these films were pretty, you know, there were films made that were much better than this one. One of the things that annoyed me is just they only had one track of music playing through the whole movie. It kind of, I mean, okay, it's very 80s synthesizer type of music, but it just seems the music was just one song, one track that someone composed, and it was just used throughout the movie repetitively. It's like every fight scene it has the same background music, you know? And yeah, and every kind of like cutesy wootsy sentimental scene with Ban Ban and the Crystal Jade has that one type of one kind of like music track. It's an okay film at best. Nothing great. I mean, I watched this once maybe years ago on a DVD that I had. Don't know where the hell that's gone now. I thought it was okay at then, but I only wanted to watch it because I thought, oh, Cynthia Rothrock and Richard Norton, it's got to have some interesting fight sequences, which the fights were. Well, that was my review on this movie. I hope you like, hope you subscribe, and hope you follow. And see you on the next one.